I am a revolutionary. I revolt against the now truly worldwide system of producing and consuming that is unable to provide the one essential benefit: health. Not for us, not for our planet. I want to stop bad products and harmful waste that make us and our planet sick. But as the movement I helped create pushes back against the plastic attack, the system merely shrugs it off and produces more plastic crap. Now, that the system ignores our demands for cutting down on waste and pollution is no mystery, because it succeeds by maximizing return on investment. ROI, that's the new euphemism for profit. Maximizing profit includes this simple imperative: make the unprofitable, negative outcomes created during production and consumption someone else's problem. Externalize them. Spoiler alert, we have reached the point where someone else is all of us, and our planet chokes on their externalized crud. The problems caused by the system's overwhelming productivity over the last 400 years are so vast, they engender resignation that happens when, quote, evil doing comes like falling rain. If plastic is raining down on us, where are we going to manage the risk? But drop by drop, are we going to decide which drop is the riskiest? Now, the rich, although they can rocket away for a brief trip, must realize that their system will have to change, right? I mean, don't they see this? Actually, no. Return on investment increases with increasing pollution. There's so much more to do, especially when forever chemicals cause serious conditions in multiple generations, and we see early death, as demonstrated in recent papers on phthalates and bisphenol A. The system produces research that results in the production of profitable remedies from big pharma. Now, this is something that we knew, but now seems extremely relevant. A series of short-lived and sickly generations is more profitable than a series of long-lived and healthy ones. Now, that is something that was known for a long time, but now we're seeing it realized very evidently. The system as a whole grows and thrives as we and our planet get sicker. Now, we're expected to absolve its pollution and waste in order to thank it for its phenomenal disruptive and exciting growth that gives us our great gadgets and technical advances. And we pretty much do, holding to the belief that the myriad risks we face can be managed. The claim that we can manage the system's risks only makes sense if we adopt very low standards for success. Now, I find it hard to declare that our risks are managed when lives are consumed in a frustrating search for some affordable combination of endless potential remedies for what ails us and our planet, only to discover that our choices produce unwanted effects as bad or worse than the conditions they're supposed to remedy. There's no side for these bad effects of technology to be relegated to. The bad effects of technology's externalities are not side effects. They are the direct effects of productive pollution and its pseudo-remedies. The global system, now embraced by the most populous countries on earth, though undoubtedly relieving poverty and toil for many, pollutes. You see, production as a means of ending poverty is different than production to end pollution. Now, I know you scientists, and I include myself among you, will probably want a definition for the system. How about this? The current global political and economic system arose out of feudalism with the help of petroleum's solid natural form, coal, and is peaking with the help of its solid synthetic form, plastic. Its energy needs for much of its 400 years have been provided by a non-renewable resource, solid, liquid, and gaseous petroleum, which became its most profitable and powerful industry. Now, each and every one of today's presenters, those fantastic, amazing presenters that we've heard during this event, each and every one of today's presentations provide, in summation, insurmountable evidence of petroleum's evil destructiveness. The oil and gas industry must be contained and phased out, and Nina and her family will make this happen. Now, as we, tend to venerate the scientists, engineers, and inventors that gave us, the admitted amazing Industrial Revolution and all its associated products, we should realize, after all, they gave us a lot of stuff, but they also got us into this mess, all right? And a lot of them are still hard at work for corporations, making the situation worse. See, scientists are afraid of losing their jobs and income like everyone else and are subject to lifelong economic pressures that all of us face. Scientists can be bought the same as politicians, but they can also refuse to create pollution and work to end it, which is what we have seen today. Now, due to the complexity of the problems we face from monetizing scientific advances, the illusion arises that only science and technology can solve them. But even our champion scientist and disruptor, Albert Einstein, who, by the way, said that he would have become a shoemaker if he knew what technology would do with his science, he stated, quote, "No problem can be solved from the same level of consciousness that created it." Now, scientific consciousness is bound to what is. Only existing phenomena can produce data, and only by modeling that data can, quote unquote, realistic predictions be made. Now, sorry, but that level of consciousness has produced and stabilizes our system. Science puts us in a box we can't think outside of or break out of. Now, I'm up here right now to tell you I'm fed up. Enough with the dystopian present. The box our civilization has created for us sucks. Damn, it sure does. In fact, so bad I gotta have a drink. Oh, it made me thirsty saying that. Damn. I've got some glass bottles though. I'm gonna bring it with me up here. So, we're humans, right? We have a very simple desideratum, and it was formulated by philosopher Barrington Moore Jr. It's to maximize pleasure and minimize pain over time. But, that obvious desire for humanity is not being delivered by modern science. We're trending in the opposite direction. Our amazing science and technology cry out, "We can fix this!" But they don't. Why? Because our systems of production are not amenable to being directed for social good. Rather, production is rewarded by an aggressively growing irrational market based on short-term satisfaction of false rather than true needs. Incessant, invasive, and deceptive advertising pushing compulsive consumption results in an instinctual bonding with the products and activities approved of and provided by the status quo. Make no mistake, These are our products and our brands. As external forces invade our self-space through bright, scrollable screens, okay, and standardize our instinctual reactions with emojis and memes, we become less able to achieve the radical new consciousness necessary to create a new system. Instead, we find our family of friends, our soulmates, and even our souls in our shared brands, our teams, our cars, our clothing, our foods, and yes, our drugs. As petroleum's airborne plastics and pollutants enter our lungs, our intestines, our blood, and our brains, shortening our lifespans and making us sick, don't worry, be happy. Accentuate the positive attitude attempts to compensate. And this attitude's toolbox is growing. We are gaining a sort of chemical and media-mediated control over our mental state. There are endless rabbit hole videos and games and increasingly available mind-altering drugs. Hey, it wasn't so long ago that people had to come to Amsterdam for marijuana and mushrooms, right? All right. Now whole countries allow them. Whether they are catalysts for change or weaken resistance to the diabolical status quo depends on the type of drug, and as Timothy Leary used to say, the set and setting. Bottom line, there is no alternate reality where we can escape from pollution and waste. But as we sail along in the trade winds of our times, consuming visual and physiological content, we may experience temporary but powerful highs. So, along with the conquest of nature grows the conquest of the human being. Now, the sad implication of this is that we will be unable to be revolutionaries. We increasingly become more or less happily tied to the system. Wait, though. I think there's an enormous ally now appearing that can't be moronized and drugged. Who is it? It is nature herself, the new revolutionary. Okay, then, I'll follow her on Facebook. Oh, wait, she doesn't have a hashtag on Twitter or Instagram? Okay, well, no, all she has are floods and droughts, heat waves and hurricanes, unstoppable waves and winds. Now, at this stage in history, only she has the force to create radical change. As the ultimate outsider, she is outside the democratic process. Her needs are the most immediate. She is not your typical revolutionary. She organizes behind the back of the political reality, and yet her demands have been presented to the world's people and their leaders. She is forcing us to take action to rebalance her system because she can and does make things worse for us, a lot worse. Modern civilization, it just can't cope with the disasters it has created. Although plastic pollution and climate change scientists advise big changes to cope with impending disasters, world leaders are all afflicted with the same kind of stupidity which afflicts the great as soon as they have to perform tasks other than the manipulation of the small. Great nations and whole states dedicate themselves to the extraction of petroleum. They build cities to refine it and make plastics. These are the modern equivalents of the monuments that arose at the origins of civilization. We burn their fuels and waste to make energy and fly around, observing disasters, but unable to prevent or adequately respond to them. Wind farms and solar arrays and recycling centers spring up here and there, but they are no match for the global scourges of plastic pollution and climate change. To me, they seem more like the offerings. I mean, not to put down recycling centers, not to put down the efforts that we make, but they're just inadequate. They're like the offerings given to the gods by our ancient ancestors to spare them from what then were actually natural disasters. And there's a lot of us now. There's a lot of us on this planet, approaching 8 billion souls. There will be lots of ineffective offerings and responses to modern disasters. But what about us? What about you? What about us who care and understand? Where is our intelligence, our energy, and our resolve needed most? I believe we need to expose our deep mental and physical dependence on the system and its products, detail its downside, and liberate ourselves through local self-reliance. Not only does electronic communication unite us with allies around the world, it unites us with our local producers and partners. Go ahead and collaborate with colleagues abroad, but look for unpackaged local products to supply your needs for food, clothing, energy, and infrastructure. Needed change is happening much too slowly, but always remember, no system in world history was eternal. And we must prepare for the current system's inevitable dissolution. For a brief time, we actually got to watch the system disappear during COVID. What a revelation to observe a restricted but cooperating humanity produce blue skies, clear air, and quiet. Local productive capacity came into its own. Now, my own home farm became a focal point for my neighbors to get fresh organic produce. I've been a certified inspected producer at my urban farms for many years, but my local small-scale production became something it had not really been before COVID. Needed and important. Neighbors flocked to my farm stand for fresh produce and camaraderie. Wearing masks. The mounting and unpredictable backlogs in the so-called supply chain will continue until we learn to rely on our own region for our basic needs and turn the supply chain into the zero-waste loop. I like the concept of the regional reliance inventory. It's a simple fraction. The numerator, the number on top, is the total number of necessities that can be regionally produced. The denominator, or the bottom number, is the total of those goods that must be shipped in from outside your region. The idea is to maximize the numerator by increasing local production and diminish the denominator by trading what is made in your region for what has to be shipped in from outside. In this way, we gradually wrest control from the big corporations and their crummy brands and create an economy that doesn't need everything wrapped in plastic and shipped over long distances. See, no matter whether shipped by boat, truck, or plane, products from far away wrapped in durable plastic packaging cause pollution and challenge accountability. Now, I believe the anchor for regional production will be the Resource Recovery Park. I was asked to write an editorial for ISWA, the International Solid Waste Association. An editor of its newsletter was one of my neighbors. And I chose to write about how to set up a resource recovery park on an open dump site like we have seen so many pictures of. Obviously a great need, but the position of the ISWA was to close these. I gave my editorial the title, Mine Landfills Now, and it was in opposition to the association's drive to close landfills and advocated digging them up to get all the recoverable resources out using both artisanal labor and advanced technology. I outlined recovery and processing of various classes of resources modeled on my own small-scale experience. There would be farming nearby to use all the composted biodegradables. And for hazardous waste, and this is really the key because there's so much of it, I advocated the founding of a resource recovery university at the entrance to the park, built with recycled materials from the landfill. It would study hazardous materials and develop methods for reducing and dealing with them. Now, landfill mining is actually being done already on a small scale where the value of the real estate the landfill sits on is greater than the cost of mining the resources out of it to prepare it for sale. We need to mine all landfills, and we have a lot to learn and a lot to do. Better create the conditions for the circular economy now, because you know what? Time's a-wasting. When you get an editorial reject, and my editorial was rejected, by the way, by the association's editorial board on the grounds of not being scientific. Okay, when you get an editorial rejected for not being scientific, since they never are, you can assume the real reason is that it was too radical or too idealistic. Obviously, mine was too radical and too idealistic. My colleagues at the Institute for Local Self-Reliance did publish the piece, and if we find ways to implement my general suggestions, lessons learned will drive resource recovery parks worldwide. So, circular and steady-state economic models are in demand, and the World Happiness Report is taken seriously because formerly subjective and metaphysical notions are now objectively being quantified based on developments in modern science itself. While the human body has been relegated to the status of a market for big pharma and social media advertising, it is also more easily understood by the individuals that live in it, We want to maximize pleasure and minimize pain over time. But a brand new political, economic, and social reality will be necessary to reach that goal. It will feature cooperation over competition. Waste-free, healthy living will be part of that reality, but its future form can only be revealed and take shape as we struggle to create it. You know what? There are no blueprints for revolution. There's no assembly instructions for revolution. All you creative nature's little helpers out there, get to work and push back against the plastic attack. Time is not on our side.
Wow.